Some of the same people that'll sit on the stage, and all of them ain't white. And some of them are preachers. They didn't walk with Doc then, they wouldn't walk with him now. And some of the same people that claim they love him on a King Day, if he was here, they would arrest him on a Monday. Remember that Jesus said, woe unto you teachers of the law and Pharisees, you hypocrites, you love the tombs of the prophet. Not the prophets, but the tombs of the prophet. And Rabbi Heschel, that great Jewish scholar, said 10 days before Dr. King was killed, Martin Luther King Jr. is a voice, a vision, and a way. And the whole future, I heard what you read earlier, Bernice, he said the whole future of America will depend on the impact and the influence of Dr. King. So if we're to stand in the tradition of Dr. King, we can't allow America to misdiagnose her problems. We got to love her enough. Just like you would love a child that had a misdiagnosis. Huh? It's not that you hate America. We want her so well. Let me show you what I mean. A few weeks ago, the news has been filled with the pictures of death and killing in a form of terrorism, violence, and injustice out of California. And the evil of taking life, Sister Palmer, is just vile and vicious by ISIS or anyone else. We have to pray for those families who lost those lives brutally. But as we look at the response of many, I hear a call from Dr. King, and since this church, Dr. Warnock told me represents an African hut, I hear a call from the ancestors to use our influence to speak the truth in the midst of terror, violence, and injustice, that disease, TBI, and to challenge a fundamental misdiagnosis, because many are and will try to pimp and prostitute the deaths in California for their own vicious political agenda. Some, like those sly as a fox newscasters, who abuse the platform they have through Fox Television, have been using the death of these innocent people to push their racist and fear-mongering agenda against the president, against immigrants, and against Muslims. One of these flaky Fox fellas said that the greatest threat to national security ever is a president who is incapable psychologically and politically, and who is not in the business of protecting Americans. Protecting Muslims, he said. Now, to be honest, in the tradition of Dr. King, you can't agree with everything President Obama's done. President Obama was asked that when he was running for office. He said, what do you think Dr. King would be with your candidacy? He said he would be challenging me. Why y'all get quiet? I'm talking about Dr. King now and Micah. Right. But that kind of critique is ridiculous. He's not psychologically and politically able to protect Americans but Muslims. Muslims are Americans. Muslims are soldiers in our military. You cannot castigate a whole religion like people used to castigate black people and think we're going to sit around and let it go unchallenged. Well, since somebody brought Dr. Cornel West in the room a minute ago, what's going on here is what Cornel West might call the niggerization of certain people. That's a formal term. It is the wholesale attempt to impede democratization, to turn potential citizens into intimidated, fearless, fearful, and helpless subjects. What they are doing, what some are doing, reveals what Phyllis Bennett and I were talking about the other night, as I discussed this with her. We don't have in America a Muslim problem. We don't even have, first and foremost, a terrorism problem, as much as we have a race problem and a xenophobia problem. Let's get the diagnosis right. Let me push it a little bit further. Terrorism is real because millions of people live in terror. But we must be clear about the root of this terror. We cannot, in the legacy of Dr. King, misdiagnose the malignancy of terrorism. It's not Islam, and it's certainly not all foreign. Terror also has American export. And we cannot hide behind blind, infallible notions of American exceptionalism and deny this. Even one of our national hymns in the second verse says, America, America, God, mend thy every flaw. Confirm thy soul in self-control, thy liberty in law. So in your debate, you talk about terrorism when it happens in Paris, but you don't say anything when it happens in Nigeria. The greatest terrorist attacks in history have American handprint all over them. That is not a statement of hate. Dr. King said it, 67. It's a statement of love. The Middle Passage, the slavery of millions of black human beings, followed by 100 years of legalized Jim Crow, terrorism. Lynchings, terrorism. The series of terrorist race riots that killed thousands of black people from Springfield to Tulsa to Wilmington in the late 1800s and 1900s. Church bombings, the assassination of Martin, Malcolm, Medgar, Viola Davis, a white woman, James Reed, Harriet Moore, etc., etc., etc. Let us not forget the Trail of Tears of the indigenous people that were here before all of us. Let us not forget how our nation supported apartheid and its terror and only divested after massive civil disobedience and protest. It was an embarrassment on the world stage. You remember 2013, that article in the New Republic that talked about some of the people who are saying they hate terrorism today are part of the legacy that stood up against Nelson Mandela. Ronald Reagan embraced the South African apartheid regime. If we don't have a conversation about terrorism, let's have a real conversation. Let us also be clear that many of the people who now we denounce as terrorists, we once had relationships with. Now that does not make their actions wrong, but it also doesn't mean our hands are clean. If you had a relationship with Osama, if you had a relationship with Saddam, because you wanted oil,